More than one-third of the Earth's population has never heard the name of Jesus. It's a sobering fact, but the situation is not hopeless. My name's Jeremy, and welcome to Indigenous Pulse, where I talk with someone who's sharing the good news using relevant methods from right where they are so that we can learn simple steps for reaching our world. In today's episode, I'm talking with Marv Newell, Executive Director for Alliance for the Unreached, about simple steps we can take to reach these unreached people groups. Marv, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it's a really privilege to be here with you, Jeremy. I look forward to speaking about this topic, which is so important. And I thank you for taking the time to give this an exposure that it needs to be done in your circle of influence.
Yeah, so can you first off just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, my title is that I'm the executive director of what's called the Alliance for the Unreached, or we also go by our mark, which is a third of us. And we have a network of about 70 organizations, and Indigenous is part of that, which we're so happy to have you as part of this. One of the members of the 70 that really have a burden to make sure that every person in the world gets to hear a clear presentation of the gospel. And so that's what our network is all about. And we try to do that by promoting it in different ways. And one of it is, I think we'll probably be talking about this, about what does this mark a third of us mean, and how does that relate to the unreached peoples of the world?
Yeah, and when you talk about unreached people, what is that exactly? What's an unreached people group?
Jeremy, I find that we need to use different definitions depending on the audience that we're speaking to. If we want a very non-technical definition, which I like to use many times in forums like this, we just say that it's a place where there's a people group that does not have access to a church or to a Bible or to believers. They're just not existent in their area. Or if they're there, they don't know about them, that they're there. And there's probably so little of them that they would never, ever, ever come across them. So an easy way to remember is just to say no church, no believers, no Bibles in a particular people group. And might want to talk about people groups too. The more technical definition is that it's a place where there's a group of people who do not have enough of a background in believing the gospel, that less than 2% of the people of their people group are actual believers, less than 2%. And therefore, they don't have really the momentum and the drive to be able to even evangelize their own people, let alone evangelize others as well.
And as the name "A Third of Us" suggests, would it be accurate to say that roughly a third of the planet's population would fall in one of those groups?
Exactly right. Yes, it is. Actually, it's more like 40% of the world of people in the world do not have access to the gospel. But we kind of round that off to a third, 33% or more, so that it's easier to remember. And that's why we have this symbol. I have it right here on my wrist. I don't know. I guess our viewers can view it there. The three lines and the one separated line indicating that one third of humanity has no gospel access. And that's the key word, Jeremy, is access. Do they even have the opportunity to have the gospel where they can find it? And a third of humanity are unaccessed with the gospel.
And that's such a large population. That's so many people. It can be easy to feel powerless. That's such a huge problem. But what we want to talk about are solutions today and some action steps that people can actually do to do that. So one of the things that I noticed just when I was looking at your website and I signed up for your newsletter, I was offered an action guide that lays out 4 steps that people can take. Can you tell me a little bit about the action guide and just your general plan for like how can people take part?
Yes, our goal is to bring awareness to people who are unaware of those who don't have access to the gospel. And so we do have several different tools that we pulled together. There's even a family guide, there's a
Hmm.
prayer guide, and then you have focused, rightfully so, on the action guide. It's really a way that we want people to actually be more than just cognizant of the fact that there are so many unbelievers in the world, but actually to do something about it themselves. And so we have four different steps in that action guide. They all start with S, so it's easy to remember that people can engage in order to do something about it's actually 3 billion people as well. So when you're talking about numericals, numerically, how many? 3 billion people still are awaiting the gospel. This action guide is to help the typical Christian to be able to do something about it. You don't need to be a trained missionary. You don't need to be a pastor or a professional in ministry. You can do this even as a layperson there in your own church and in your own circle of influence.
Yeah, that's great. And we definitely want people to take action. I was thinking of a quote I read recently that said, God called us to be the salt of the earth, but salt that is not put on food is really just like an ornament, right? It's not useful if it's not used. So that's something I'm thinking about as you're saying that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the first step is just to share. And there's a few different ways of doing that. You showed a symbol on your hand. There's also a hashtag for social media stuff. So can you talk a little bit about ways that
Yeah.
people can share?
Yeah. Well, let me, in case they've never really seen the symbol, I'm just going to show this. Now, this is the book I wrote about A Third of Us, but the symbol is more clearly seen here, and that's
Yeah,
why I'm showing this. And so you see the three lines with the one separated from the other two.
yeah.
It's what we're talking about, and people can actually write that on their palm or on their wrist or anywheres that they want. I've seen it on people's foreheads and cheeks or whatever like that, and actually then just go and take a picture of that and put it up on their social media. So, yeah, take a picture of that in whatever creative way that you have. And I've seen many, many creative ways of doing this and just posting it. And then people are going to say, hey, what's those three lines mean? What's going on? And it gives you an opportunity to share that. And also, in using a hashtag with A Third of Us would be a place in some of the social medias that would drive people then to our website, and they can see the other tools and the other opportunities. We have merchandise you can buy, hats and T-shirts and other things that have the symbol on them. So just sharing the symbol, making it visible yourself, and every single person I think has some kind of a social media connection. Therefore, they could do this. And so we're not asking them to do anything much out of the ordinary of what they typically do in a typical day anyway.
Yeah, I like that. I like the mystery of both the symbol and the hashtag. It reminds me of when I Am Second first came out, and then I would see these billboards that says I Am Second, and none of them really explained what it was. They wanted you to have to look it up yourself to find out.
Yeah.
And it seems like this can kind of work the same way, where it can kind of generate, oh, what do you mean a third of us? A third? What does that mean?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, exactly it. That's what we're trying to do, is to just pique people's curiosity to the point that they would actually go and read about it and understand that, and then hopefully do something about it, like share the symbol, share the mark, something very simple to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the next step that people can take in the action guide is to pray, and that's something that, as a Christian, prayer is always something that you can and should do for others. But what are some specific ways that we should pray for these people groups?
Well, generally just pray. There are 9,000 people groups that are still considered unreached of the
Mm,
of the 17,000 that are in the world. So there's a lot of different groups that could be prayed for. And if people wanted to intelligently pray for some of these people, one of the partners that we have here is called Joshua Project with us. And every day they send out they have an app. You can just go on their website, joshuaproject.net, I think it is. And and be able to download the little widget there and take a look at who the people of the day happens to be on any given day. It changes every day. It
Mm,
gives statistics about them, where they're located, some basic beliefs they have, and how unreached they happen to be. If they're on the app in there, then they are definitely a completely unreached people group.
mm,
So to do it intelligently and pray, I try to look at that app every day and take a look and pray just briefly for that group is able to do. Or maybe you know somebody who's a missionary to an unreached people group, and
mm.
therefore go ahead and pray for them as well. Remember that they're working among these kinds of people we're talking about, and ask them to give opportunities to be able to share and to witness in the context that they happen to be in. So yeah, general prayers are okay, but specific prayers I think would be more beneficial. And just, if we really believe that God intervenes in the world, then we should be people of intercessory prayer,
Mm.
because God works through our concerns on our behalf. And he's able to do that because he's a God who is sovereign over the world. And if we really believe that he is, then prayer should be the means that we use to approach God and ask God to do something about it.
For sure. I agree completely. And one of the things I love about prayer and the one before that, sharing, is that anyone can do that. We're not asking people to do something that's way out of your comfort zone. It's something that requires a lot of skill. Anyone can and should pray for people groups and for other things.
Yeah. Hey, let me share a really quick story. It just came, I just thought
Yeah.
about their part, if you don't mind us just reaching back there for a second. Is that last Sunday, I was on a pontoon boat trip with my small group going down St. Joseph River here in Michigan. And there was one of the members on the group. He was looking at I had the shirt on with the three symbols on it, and also the hat with
Yeah.
the three others. And he says, you're really driving me nuts with those symbols there. It's like, what are what what are you trying to do with those three lines? And it gave you an opportunity to share.
Mm,
And
yeah.
he was a believer and all. He didn't know about this, like many of them don't. And so just, yeah, you can share by getting some of the merchandise that we have on our website, which is kind of cool stuff, quite frankly, that
Mhm.
would help to do that. So that and praying, as we just mentioned, are very important.
Yeah, for sure. And then back to the action guide, the third step that people can take is to serve. So service is another thing that
Yes.
Christians are called to do, and it makes me think of James when he said that faith without works is dead. That we should all be putting our faith into action. So why is service important to
Yeah,
you?
because when we do serve, especially try to serve people who are non-believers and unreached altogether, we get more and more of a burden for them, and
Mm,
I think engage it much more deeply because we see the face of people who are in need. And so serving gives, when you give of your time, you're investing of yourself, you're making it a priority. It becomes something that's more important than watching a baseball game on TV on a lazy Sunday afternoon.
mm,
You're out actually doing that. And so, you can just be looking for opportunities, especially with the global migration that's going on. And in our communities, we have people from all over the world that we never would have imagined meeting even 20 years ago. Afghan refugees are probably in most everyone's community that's listening to this broadcast. And you can
mm,
go and say, hey, Afghans, all of them, every single people group there are considered unreached. So if I can engage in these, and maybe there's some organized ways that's being done in your community, go and do that. It will help give you a burden and help you to see the need and the passion you need to help these people understand that there's a different way than what their belief system says. The way of the gospel is the true and only way that we know that God wants us to approach him. So that is reinforced when you actually are engaging with those people, if you can possibly do that.
Yeah, and if I'm looking for opportunities to serve, maybe what you said just inspired me, and so I want to do that, but I don't really know how to get started. What are some ways that I can find good service opportunities?
Well, on our website, we have a list of a lot of our members. Actually, all of our members, and there are a couple classifications there. And possibly somebody could go to one of those member sites and see what they have to say in that regard, because I think all of them would have a way that you can engage. And
Mhm.
so, like 70 different organizations, and as I said, Indigitus is one of them. Um, among the other 69 that are just span the entire globe and have opportunities in some of the most remote places and some far places, as well as something that might be nearby. But um, there's ways to access service opportunities by connecting with those organizations that have been doing it for years upon years.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then the final step that's in the guide is support. And I hope people don't turn this off because that's money. But for some of you, you're not in a place where you're able to give financially. But for some of you, that is something where God has blessed you financially, and you have the ability to support maybe other missionaries or missionary organizations. So for anyone who's in that situation, what are some good ways that someone can support this cause of helping unreached people groups?
Yeah, well, like I said about the previous serve category, this would
Mhm.
be very much the same. You don't have to do that in a way that's haphazard and you don't know where your money's going. And I would say always check deeply into whatever organization that you might want to work through. But once again, those organizations on our website are all in need because they're all doing outreach every day that's new, and therefore
Mm.
there's always new needs and new opportunities. And I'd say go ahead and take a look and see what's out there. Maybe of those that are there, you can see three organizations that pique your interest the most, and you would say, yeah, let me go see what I can do through this. Every single one of those websites would have a give button on it. Uh, able to do that. I'm sure they do because that's what they want to do, and rightfully so. They need to do it because that's what God has called them to do, and they have their specific niche of how to do it, and therefore you know that your money is well spent by going to some reputable group like that. Anybody that's on our website has been vetted as a real organization with a real legitimate ministry that could be supported.
That's great. Such a good conversation. I feel like I've learned some about unreached people groups, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners have as well. And I know that everyone in each of those groups matters deeply to God, that there's not a person out there, wherever they lived, whatever situation they have, whatever they grew up believing, there's no one out there who doesn't matter to God. So I love what the Alliance for the Unreached is doing and with this campaign, and it's really exciting. Um, so I'm just wondering, for anyone listening, do you have any final advice or encouragement to someone who just
Yeah, I do.
has a heart for them?
I do, and I'm not trying to just kind of toot my own horn here, but this
Yeah.
book, it's a thin book, so it's easy to read. But if
Hmm.
you want to dig deeper, um, that's what this book is about, especially the first chapter and the last chapter would be good chapters to read if you want to dig a little bit more deeper to find out what do we really mean about these unreached peoples and where are they located and how do you classify them. It's all kind of mentioned in the book here, and then there's the words of Jesus that tells us what we are to be doing in order to uh, to reach these unreached peoples. And then at the end, there's some statistics that you can see that are true as to the state of so many peoples in the world that are still unreached. So I would say our website, once again, alliancefortheunreached.org. One of the resources on the resource tab would be the book. and
Mm.
it's inexpensive. I think it's $10. I think is what the book is. So it's not expensive, and it's a great way. And you can actually get it electronic if you want to read it on Kindle, as most people do today.
Mhm.
That's a great way to get it as well.
Great. Marv, thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and this has been inspirational. And I pray that God blesses what you're doing, and God brings more people to you that are excited about reaching the unreached.
Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciated this interview and this exposure, especially through Indigitus. And I continue to pray that your ministry continues to grow and to flourish and to impact a lot of people too, Jeremy. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
If you have a heart for the unreached, see the links in the description for the action guide and other ways you can take simple steps to make Jesus known. Go digital, be missional, and may God bless you.